Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chats with Darla and Kat. And today we have two guests. We have Matthew and Joseph Somma here today to talk about the divine masculine and its importance. So, just want to do just a little quick, brief reminder to anyone who's listened to any of this. We've been talking about the divine inner child, the divine masculine, and our divine masculine is what we're going to talk about today. And the reason is, how do we actually triangulate and actually bring ourselves into proper alignment is being able to work and function in all three. So, how is it for the two of you guys to actually be able to say, well, one, you're male, so you're already naturally gravitate to the divine masculine because it's just your natural, but that's not always the case. So when I throw that out there, how often do you guys actually find yourself in the divine feminine and remembering that you have to flip to the divine masculine?
Would you like to go first, Joe?
They're like, let me think about this.
Go ahead, Matthew. You can take it.
All right, here we go. This is going to be a fun one. All right, so for me, I'm kind of a flow creature. Like I really flow into both the masculine and feminine pretty easily. Like it depends on the situation, and I'm very situational. It's because I moved around so much as a kid. I went to like 12 different schools before I graduated high school, kind of thing, and like it was across the country kind of moving. So it's not like I kept friends in the 80s and 90s. You didn't have the internet really. So I had to learn how to adapt quickly. And then I got into martial arts when I was 13. So then I began to learn how to flow with my body. And then I started to be able to flow through every situation I was getting myself into, good or bad, but I was able to flow through it and adapt my personality to what I needed to at the time. Granted, you get lost in that sometimes for a long period of time, and then you're like, who am I really? And then that's when you have to like learn how to like stand up and kind of commit to something, some form of action. And that's the masculine side piece, is like jumping into that action and then deciding and then going towards it every day. Picking 1 to 6 actions, is kind of my thing, towards whatever you're trying to visualize or go towards. How
So
about you, Joe?
I want to actually go a little bit further with you on that one, Matthew.
Oh,
Talked about going in and having all of these different dynamics of moving around and happen to adjust and become adaptable. That's
okay.
not an easy thing.
I
So,
missed a little bit of what you were saying because it was like really echoey.
oh, okay. Oh, I was saying that through all the different things that you went through growing up and having to change in your environment so much and learning the gift of adaptability
Mhm.
and working into that flow for you, how much of that actually assists you now in the action with the divine masculine?
Oh, it's a huge strength because I kind of know, like, I get a natural instinct as to whether I should be using one or the other. I don't always use it correctly. Granted, I'm still learning, but at 40, I've had some experience in it, and I've been able to choose some of those times. So if I can do it more and more often, then it becomes a great strength.
That's
And
awesome.
I'm realizing that being in that mindset is a great strength in general. Like when I'm in that flow state, and I get into it often now because I've chosen this path of personal development and learning how to choose my path and create the outcomes, that it's a wonderful feeling when you can do it, when you can just be in a state of being in the now, in that present moment, and it'll change your life in a heartbeat,
That is
in
awesome.
a good way.
Yeah. Joe, are you ready to jump in yet, or do you need a little bit more time?
No, I can go on a little rant. How did you word that question again?
The original question is, how is it that, paraphrased, the original question was basically in reference to yourself, how do you flow and shift back and forth in to from basically the importance of the action of the divine masculine for you.
Well, I'm a little different than Matthew. I can't say that I've flowed between the two throughout my life. I think that's more over the last couple of years, really learning about the difference between the divine masculine and the divine feminine, excuse me. Growing up, I was always fighting. I was always fighting. And it not always was me, starting it or instigating it, but when you're the tallest kid, people have to prove themselves against the biggest person. And well, that was me in school. So I spent most of my time literally fighting. My home life, it was not much different. So I stayed in that alpha male, divine masculine type mindset to where it was always doing. There wasn't time to think. It was do, go, go, go. Don't stop. Just keep moving forward. And that's not always the best way to go. And over the last couple of years, like I said, I've really learned about the divine feminine and the divine masculine and how totally different it is from identifying as male and female. We can be a male and be divine feminine and create what we want to create. I believe in the divine feminine call. I talked about how as guys, we do this in our garages when we're building that hot rod or creating that man cave. We're we're seeing that vision, we're creating it, and when the divine masculine comes in, we're doing it. We're putting that image into reality. We're creating however we wanted to create that creation. Excuse me. So for me, it's been a unique couple of years learning the difference between how I can be creative and enjoy the process, and then dive in, get my hands dirty, and bring that to life.
So I want to talk a little bit about here you were growing up, felt like you were constantly in the fight. Everything was about the fight. Here you are, the biggest guy in school, so everyone's coming up to create the conflict. Let me see if I can beat up the biggest guy, and you're like, oh, no, let me show you. You can't, because you were standing fully in your authority, even if it was in the fight. So
Yeah,
you actually were really strong and avid in your position, and you were confident with your position because you had to prove it constantly. So shifting, being someone who had to shift to understand that you have this inner child that wants to be on this adventure. You have this divine feminine part of you that wants to actually begin creating. How much of a struggle was it to actually go from divine alpha male to actually entertaining that part of yourself and actually allowing yourself to free flow into the creativity?
Oh, in my younger years, I didn't really know what a spiritual awakening was or didn't comprehend most of the terminology. I've learned that over the last like 5 or 6 years or so. Well, I'm still learning, I should say. So really, it got to a point in my life where I knew I needed change. I knew I didn't want to keep doing the same thing over and over because I wasn't getting any better results. So I had to like humble myself and be open to the idea that I don't know everything, and be receiving of, different ideas, different thought processes, different perspectives. And that's actually how I met my mentor, Vanessa, was joining some type of Facebook live or call or something on the divine feminine. And I never thought I would sit in a call like that, but it ended up being one of the best things I've ever done in my life, and brought me into so much, healing from not only my childhood, but into adulthood. And going from one mindset to the mindset I have now, that I think was the most challenging part, because I had to be okay with knowing there's other ways. You don't always have to fight to get your result. You don't always have to yell, scream, argue, whatever. There's multiple ways to get a result. And that, I think, was the toughest part, was, like I said, humbling myself and being open to receive anybody however they present themselves. And once doing that, a lot of shifts occurred, and I started learning I can pick and choose what energy I want to bring to whatever situation I'm in. And there could be situations where one moment I'm, designing something and I'm using the divine feminine to make that creation, and then turn around, literally move to the workbench, and now I'm taking that divine feminine energy, moving it into the divine masculine and making the creation. And we did that a little bit with the robotic stuff I was doing, where we were literally, drawing it out on CAD, creating the design, having that creation, flow, and then turn around and literally bust out some tools and some metal and start building and creating and getting getting into the project.
That's awesome. Now, Kat, do you have questions yet for them, or do you have information about your divine masculine that you've recently embarked on learning how to tap into?
Well, that's the thing. Like um, I realize like those spaces within us are so wounded, right? Like in women, the divine masculine is very wounded, and the divine feminine, and the inner child, like all three in every, so I guess like what I find interesting, and let me tell you how it's been wounded in me, right? And I don't want to like bash anybody, but the reason I think this way, is because of what was deposited in me, so I've always had this mentality that like men don't really have feelings and they don't really care, and they only want one thing, and then once they get it, like that's it. And you know I never really thought about men in a divine term, and then the men that have been in my life, they're already wounded, so their wounds were trickled down too. And then I see that great divide, like as women and men, we think there's such a great divide between all of us, but we're not. We're actually more alike and um more similar than we think that we're different. And I just find that aspect so fascinating to like really hear how men feel. We don't, men don't have that permission like us, from the time that we're born, and throughout our childhood, what is the characteristics that are dumped on us as far as like boy versus girl, right? And what do we tell girls? Like they're emotional, they're crazy, they're this, they're that, but we're allowed to have whatever crazy emotions that come up within us, and we're allowed to feel that for the most part. And then I think as girls, we try so hard to fit in with the guys. We want to be accepted, we want to be one of the dudes in that regard. But then you see, listening to the guys talk about that aspect within them, it really shows how much support men need, and how much we all need that support from each other to heal, and to heal those wounded spaces within. And I love to hear the male perspective and what they go through, because it's really helped me to open my eyes to realize that men have a soft side to them, and they have deep feelings just as deep as we do. And that skewed version in our heads really needs to get undone. I think that the more as women that we rally around men to give them permission to feel their emotions, and to really talk about how can we bring about change if we're always suppressing each other and we're always cutting each other off, and we don't have established rapport between each other, between men and women, and we sit here thinking that there's that divide between us, where we think that, men think this way and they only want this thing. And I can only imagine how, I've started to learn in the last probably 6 months. I've really started to listen to, men, and to hear that hurt that they have towards women. And there's a lot of toxic femininity, a lot of toxic femininity. Like I had an encounter the other day where I was listening, to some dudes joke about their wives having all their stuff. And I'm like, that's not funny, and it's not okay. Like, oh, what's mine is mine, and yours is mine. Like, what happened to, this
Here's
together?
here's the thing. It's the I to the me to the we to the us.
Yeah.
And when, where is component? We don't have all of that nowadays. There's so much being torn different ways, but there are spaces that are redeveloping it so that there is an opportunity for it.
Yeah.
For all of us here in this group, we're all in part of Noble Goldman, and we know that collectively in Noble Goldman, that's what it's about, coming in and actually going from the me to the we to the us, so that we can all collaborate and work together and actually build ourselves into what we're really looking to build ourselves into, and having the resources and the things right there at our fingertips to be able to attain it and achieve it. And
Yeah.
that's the part, most places will say it, but they're not delivering.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. Once you find those places that are actually delivering, and that's what all of us have found through Noble Goldman, it's actually a space that allows it to deliver, and we can actually shift. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's how we've all found each other. So now in regards to yourself, looking at it, you can see the dynamics. I heard everything that you were saying with what in regards to the toxicity and in our own personal relationship to ourselves, as well as the different components of ourselves. So for you in the last few months, I know that you have really come into learning about your own divine masculine and that action, that doing part of you, because you
Yeah.
could sit in the feeling part of yourself and you
And
were good at it.
that's what I'm great at, is the doing part. That's so I don't really want to say, it's just, I guess I'm meeting that aspect of myself, I'm not great at it. Takes me forever to do, if that makes sense. Like, it takes me so long to know what I want and to decide, like, this is what I want and this is what I want. But once I do that, there's nothing that gets in my path to stop me. Like, I'm determined. I'm like, okay. And that's the doer aspect of me. It's like, once I have made up my mind and I know and I have it down and I got it, like, whatever it is I want to create, then it's more like I'm just like, out of my way.
Right. That is exactly, though. That is the action. Here we are. Let's look at our divine inner child. Our divine inner child, if any of us have created anything, we're all about going and doing the adventure. Here we are. Our inner child's ready to go explore and achieve anything. But it all starts in the divine feminine. Here it is. Here's the creation. We've got an idea of we're going to go do this. It requires us to shift it from that idea to the actions with the divine masculine, so he can go and actually create it, so that the divine inner child can actually sing out with its adventurous activities and be like, look at what we're doing now. So you have the different dynamics there within yourself. And once you come into complete alignment with yourself, all three of them become easy to navigate. So it's like you're sitting there and you're like, oh, wait a minute. There needs to be an idea. How are we going to do this? Toss it back to your divine feminine. Okay. All right, I'm going to go do this. Let me see. This is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. Then here I am. I'm going to go, oh, okay, that's a wonderful idea. How do I execute it? Here comes my divine masculine who steps in and goes, this is it. Here's how it's going to be done. Here's the details. This is this. Let me go put this together. And then my inner child goes, oh my God, let's do this. And so now we're out actually enjoying it. For myself personally, that divine masculine, the doing factor, when I was very young, I had to rise up and actually do, because others in my life wouldn't do. There was a lot of laziness. There was a lot of abandonment. There was a lot of different issues that happened in my younger years that made me overdeveloped in responsibilities. So I immediately gravitated to my masculine side of me. it was easier to be in the action and just go and get it done, because then I didn't have to wait on anybody else. I didn't have to expect anybody else. I didn't have to sit and go, is somebody going to come and help me? I was like, I'm going to just go get it done. So stepping into that role, I did it very early. I was like, oh, okay, I got to do this. There ain't nobody else to do it for me. So I'm going to do it. So for me to shift and to honor my creation was really hard, though I was doing it. My feminine was always in action, always doing, but I'd never given her the value, never given her the recognition, never gave myself the recognition. And that was really difficult to finally shift, where, I was always seeking approval for the longest time in my life. I was, let me show you what I'm doing so you can tell me I'm doing a good job.
Yeah, me too.
Because I didn't just believe in that creativity and realize that creativity that I already had, that was already in motion, was already valuable. I just completely pressed that divine feminine away. And I was good at going, let me show you what I did. Let me show you what I can do. Let me do this. The doing part was easy for me. So, no matter whether or not you're if you're a female or if you're male, what is the easiest for you? For myself personally, the divine masculine was simple. I don't have to speak. I don't have to go and entertain. I don't have to do, I just got to go do it. As long as I do it, everybody's happy. And that was, and that was easy for me. And, but for somebody else, that can be completely difficult. I have family members that, everybody's like, can't you just do? Won't you just do? And they won't do nothing. They're going to sit and think about it and ponder it until kingdom comes. And I don't understand that, but they're living more in that feminine of creativity, and they're just living in that development stage of it, and not taking the physical action because they're not shifting into the next component of themselves. So having all three, in my opinion, has really set my life into a whole new caliber. It literally upgraded me. It allowed me to be in complete alignment with myself, because now I'm able to go and do and have a good time in that inner child and play and have the experience. But I'm always going to shift back to that creation of how does it begin and where does it create? And then I can shift it over and actually have a good time creating it. So it's coming into that proper balance. And are we staying balanced each day? So that's my next question. Are we actually staying in balance, and do we know how?
Well, no, because I mean, it just like I'm always okay. What always fascinates me is how the inner manifests on the out, right? So, like, you can look at somebody's home from the outside and it could be immaculate, and you go inside their house and it's a disaster, right? Well, that's usually indicative of what's going on inside of a person, right? So, I think what fascinates me is if all of us are out of alignment in those spaces and it's been manifesting on the outside in our creation, where do we stop to come back into that alignment within ourselves and then start valuing each other and honoring each other, right? Because, it makes me wonder if the divine feminine is stronger in females or males, or if it just depends on what space is more wounded within you, that you're, whether you're a male or a female, what space is more wounded within you. Does that make sense? I lost my train of.
Yeah, because what you were saying is that you're trying to figure out whether or not, because of the fact of gender being male and female, do we, how are we hardwired? Is it due to our wounded space that we act more in one or the other instead of, or, and are we honoring those parts of ourselves? That's pretty much what you were referencing. So, I mean, is that really?
Well, yeah, because I mean, what's manifesting on the inside of us is showing up on the outside of us. So that wounded stuff that's inside of us is projecting out, and we're a bunch of hurt people hurting everybody else because we've been hurt. So to heal that, to challenge people's ways of thinking, it, like, I can't come and change you, I can't fix you, I can't heal you, I can't do anything, right? You can't do that for me. Like, I can tell you you're beautiful, I can, everything you're showing me, look what I did, look what I did. No amount of me being like, good job, great, you're amazing, you're awesome, you're worthy, none of that ever makes you feel validated until you can validate yourself.
Exactly. It has to begin within.
Is that hard for men, or do men do that too, or is that do you guys feel like you seek validation, or do you think you seek validation in a different way? Or
You want to go, Joe?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump real quick. I would simply say yes. We're all created equal. We all have the same issues. We all have the same ego stopping us from doing amazing things. So yes, to your question, when we all do need to value ourselves, we all need to see how truly amazing we are without what's on the outside coming in to beat us up and put us in that little box. Fuck that box.
Right.
and I think in order to heal, women need to see that about men, that I don't know if people do research on like Project Mockingbird and Monarch Mind Program, but one of the things that when you go diving down that hole to learn about it, one of the things that gets talked about is our subconscious, right? And this is how we become damaged, with a repetitive subconscious message that comes in. So like rap music and movies, there's subconscious subliminal messages in that gets repeated and reiterated, and as we're growing up, we've developed these, ideas of the opposite sex, right? Men think women are like this, women think men are like this. And we're all going, I'm not like that. Those aren't my values, or those aren't my morals, or those aren't the things that are important to me, and most guys are like, I don't want a girl like that. And most women are like, I don't want a dude like that. And yet our relationships are so broken and in need of such great repair that so many people have realized we got to stop, pump the brakes. It's me. It's like my thinking is skewed. It's messed up. That's where I have to go and fix, before any of us can move forward in life, before any of us can, challenge other people's thoughts or fix anything wrong between us or in this world. It all has to come with each one of us stopping and going, why do I think the way I do? Where does that come from? Why do I believe what I believe? What's the truth behind that?
I know that right now, with the way Matthew just leaned in, he has a lot to share. Yeah. I can see his whole body. He's like, please let me go.
I'm vibrating, man. I'm vibrating harder.
I could see it. I was like, let's hear what Matthew has to say.
I got a couple things for you on this. All right. First, I'm going to kind of shift it back a little to the first piece where you were talking about change and how long it can take. It does take a while, but like you said, it's a moment when you choose and then you begin to act. So it's only a moment that something shifts, and then all of a sudden you make that change. Now, the more often you do that, and the more often you go towards that positive vision, that dream, whatever it is, the easier it becomes as you do it more and more often, much like the flywheel. As far as balance goes, like, first, you need to become aware. The unconscious incompetence is big out there, and that's kind of what this whole community is about. But I think it takes community to realize that, to become aware, because then you're looking at other people and how they're shifting in those divine masculine, feminine energies, and you begin to your brain begins to assess that and it wants to understand, because it's there to protect us. fundamentally. So as it's protecting us, we have to learn how to take that awareness and then take action with the awareness. And that's where these groups come into play, like this, where we're able to talk about it in an open format in a safe way where everyone feels heard and felt. And I think that's a huge part of it. And men aren't really taught to be vulnerable. Even still, it's becoming more popular. And I think the younger generations are doing better about it. Just look at TikTok and stuff like that. There's all kinds of positivity out there going on. And if we can share each other's positivity and send that positive vibration as opposed to those bad thoughts that are inside of our head, that bad cycle you're talking about, that we all get stuck in sometimes, then we begin to create. That's how you raise that one conscious level at a time, is just by being that raised conscious level. That's just everyday creation, though. That's like walking into a store and smiling instead of, oh man, I'm at the store again. Oh, I gotta deal with people again. Oh man.
That one there, I love that part that you're saying right there, Matthew, because we can literally be like, oh, I gotta go to work again. Oh, gotta go do this. But instead, if you can get up and say, I get to do that. You can literally change one word about the way you're saying it, and your whole body will change the way that it feels. It's literally just learning the tool, and it's literally can be just the way that you word things.
I like that one. And then adding and as well. You can be divine masculine and divine feminine. You can be a divine inner child. You can be a divine masculine, whatever you choose to be. It's up to you. And it does take balance, and you do have to learn to balance it. But I think that just comes with time and wisdom. Like, that's just, it's like anything else. I'm a gamer, so once I start a new game, I don't know what I'm doing, and I get my butt kicked all the time, But then after, hundreds of hours of playing a video game, you become quite sufficient at it, let alone tens of thousands of hours. So it's just one of those things that you begin to master anything in life, whether it's martial arts, personal development, video games, the musical flute. I mean, pick your choice. It's a beautiful life to live when we can choose all these options.
So, Joe, did you have anything more you wanted to add?
Some stuff was popping up while Kat was speaking a few moments ago, but see if I can recall.
I put him on the spot.
One thing I noticed when she was talking about how we're always looking at each other and having that expectation, this is the man role, this is the woman's role, blah, blah, blah. That's how, honestly, that's just judgment. We're individuals. I mean, yes, we are all created equal, but we're still our own individuals. And like Matthew was saying, we can choose to be divine feminine and divine masculine, or we can choose just one, whatever's fitting in that moment. But you can also choose not to judge others and just accept them for how they present themselves. If this guy comes up to you and he's highly, feminine, whatever, accept him for him. Why do you got to judge him? Why do you got to put expectations on him? It's not needed. It's not called for. Just let people be who they're going to be.
That's the key right there. If people could just move out of the way and just let people, and not place a perspective. This is what it is. We all have our own thought system. So we go, oh, this is the only lens I can look through because this is all I know. So if this is all I know, this is all I can assume for the rest of it. And what am I doing? If I'm making an assumption, if I'm assuming, look at the way the word spelled itself and just break it up. You know how to make that one work. So, we can make an ass out of ourselves easily, basically, to assume. So I can't, when I'm dealing with other people, one of the best things what Joe was just saying is when I'm dealing with other people, I literally do not take anything from any part of my life and put it in front of me before looking at someone else. I literally allow people, and people will tell me, they're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's different about you. I do not lay judgment on anyone. I truly just allow people to be themselves and allow them to be who they are. They're going to exhibit their behaviors. And out of those behaviors, I can eventually make a decision of whether or not I need that person in my life or not. And it's based out of the actions that they have taken. And it's no longer based out of a situation from my own circumstances. I can literally allow each individual to come into my life and be themselves. And because of that, I've allowed myself to really allow people to grow and develop into who they are because I'm leaving space for them to be them. And that's why when I work with people, people are like, wow, you do things so differently. It's because I'm coming from a place of going, okay, so tell me your story,
Yeah.
because your story is just as important as mine. And when I allow you that space to be able to share yourself and be who you really are, it allows you to actually see the doors in your own life to go, oh, wait a minute, I can do this. Being non-judgmental is one of the best things we can do. And I'm going to go ahead and jump over and let Matthew jump in because his hand's up.
And then come to me.
Thank you.
Throw that hand up.
No, what we're talking about here, though, are labels and boundaries, right? Anytime we label anything, then we start attaching things to it. Like that's just the way our brain works. And that's not a bad or a good thing. It just is a thing. And so when we were, I think I want to say Wayne Dyer or Eckhart Tolle talks about it quite a bit, is releasing those labels of anything. I think it's Wayne Dyer actually that I really got it from.
Dyer's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I love him so much, man. He's done so many great works, and I really enjoyed following him during his life and stuff. And every once in a while when I'm watching his things, I'll still feel the energy piece from him. It's really neat how energy works. And that brings me to the other part. Although first I want to go into boundaries real quick. Boundaries are important. Like you can accept something in your life or you don't have to. It's totally up to you. This is your life experience to have. So I believe that everybody can choose what it is that they want in their life. Yes, sometimes we do have to see the bad stuff. It's going to happen. I mean, life sends that at us regardless of whether we're trying or not. How you deal with it, what you do with that is what produces the outcome. So if you're looking at it from a light of, oh crap, this sucks, again, it's the labeling and then becoming sad about it or letting those feelings come in. Or what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What is it that I can do about this? Now, if you can't do anything about it, then there's nothing for you to do. It's a do nothing, leave nothing undone kind of scenario. And that's when I go into things like Ho'oponopono and stuff like that, because I can't control an ambulance going down the street to pick somebody up, but I can send out positive vibes to them and hope that they're okay. And at least then I've done something. And then looking at people as energy, much like Darla's talking about, I think is such a concept that our human race needs. Like, look at everybody as an energy being, because we're all energetic beings. If you break us all down, break down everything around us, we're all made out of the same stuff.
Yep, we're all vibrating at a different frequency.
And it's always going in and out of existence, literally, that we can see our visual existence, which is where meditation and other things come into play. Because once you've played around in your head and in your being so much, it's like there's so much space, your whole universe unto yourself. Like you can fly through space in your mind. It's so much fun. And there's so much to discover and play with in there. But you have to be okay with that and you have to love it. And people are scared of that inner being a lot of times, I find, because they haven't gotten quiet. This world is very loud with all the electronics. I mean, look at us now. We're on a computer screen now, and this is like most of our lives nowadays. So how do we shift that? And that's the balance piece that you're talking about. And that's going back into nature, going to do things outside the house, getting centered and feeling the earth. That's all I have to say.
That was beautiful. And it really brought into a construct of what was really being talked about. in regards to the judgments, the expectations, the labels, the boundaries, and all of that, and that's the truth. When we come from our own perspective, that's all we know. That's all any of us know. So no one's really wrong. It's just the level of what we have engaged in throughout our life. So we're just coming from our space. So really, if we really take that into account, if everyone is really coming from their own heart space and everyone's really all we really want to do is just love. We're all from that space of love. Here we are, even if it was something that happened and we don't understand it and it felt like it was an attack, the initial space was coming from the exact heart space. It was all coming from the initial place of love. It just wasn't received. So, if one person is in one vibrational status, meaning, okay, so one person's in one emotional state and they're being rejective to everything that's coming to them, they're not going to be able to receive love because they're in a state of frustration, irritation, or whatever. Those two vibrations are different levels in the spectrum, so they cannot resonate in the same line. So what's going to happen? It's an instant deflection. Nope, can't deal with that. Nope, not handling that. And both people in that moment, regardless of whether or not they're sitting there in the frustration, they still love, they still care. They just can't receive the love from a love position. They have to receive it from a frustrated position because everyone's frustrated. You have to meet on the energetic levels. So what happens generally in every situation, if you come down and actually take all of the words and everything else out of the situation and you actually look at it, it was just two people on different vibrational levels and they couldn't meet in the middle. So that's exactly. It's just a hit and a miss on everything. So Kathy, you said to come back to you.
I was so excited to add to this. So, and that's what I wanted to go back to what, when Joe was talking, right? So in order to understand, why am I the way I am? You got to go inside. You got to figure that out, right? And so one time I was sitting there and what came to me was I could see all the fighting and the bickering in the world, right? But really, if you take it down to the root of it, what is that? Why are we all fighting? Because we're all judging. We're all judging, right? I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to like you. I'm going to thumbs down you. I'm going to thumbs up you. And every single one of us is looking at each other, judging. So what is a judgment? You have to know what a judgment is. You have to break that down within yourself. What is a judgment? When you break a judgment down to a root, a judgment is this. I'm taking your free will away from you. And the way you're taking a person's free will away from them in their judgment of them is by identifying what your judgment really says. Your judgment says, I am right and you are wrong. My way is better than yours. My idea is better than yours. The way that you're doing what you're doing, the way you're living and how you're living is wrong. That is the root of a judgment. Whether it is good or bad, you're saying my way is better than yours because that's what a judgment does. But what people fail to realize is that it's love. That judgment is still love. Because when you're sitting there passing judgment on somebody and you're like, this girl's a slut, or this dude's a this, or this guy's a that, whatever that judgment is, whatever you're sitting there turning your nose up or, loving about a person, it's still love. If you break it down as to why you even care to have that judgment or place a judgment on somebody, it's love, right? Even a negative one, because it's, you see, somebody falling apart, or you see somebody in a struggle, or you see somebody self-sabotaging and destroying themselves. And we recognize that because we recognize truth. We recognize truth, whether we can articulate it or not. And that judgment is coming from that place of love, in that we're like, why would you do that? Look at this girl. But we aren't responding in love, and we're not reacting in love. And that's why all of us are so hurt. That's why all of us have such a disconnect, and there's no rapport between your loved ones, between your friends, between each other, and why we can't seem to connect and talk. is because we're so busy. And what I realized was that all I want to do is love you, and all you want to do is love me. And that it's that reaction and that response that's not in love that keeps us disconnected from each other and keeps us fighting against each other, instead of just saying, cuss y'all. But damn it, we are like, man, I just want to be loved. You just want to be loved. I want to be accepted. I want to be valued. I want to be cherished. I want to be heard. I want to be acknowledged,
Right.
And once you start acknowledging yourself and you start loving yourself and you start giving yourself the compassion that you want, it manifests on the outside, because
That's
you are
the key.
energetically matching that vibration. What I want for you, I want for myself. If I make myself worthy, then I must make you worthy. If I want love, I have to become love. If I want forgiveness, I have to forgive. If I want peace, then I have to make peace. If I want redemption, I have to redeem. And that has been such a huge theme in the last 10 years of my life, is coming to that place of balance, And so many people talk about boundaries, but there's a fine line between a boundary and a wall. And so many people think that this is my boundary and I'm placing this boundary and don't cross it. And what they don't realize is you didn't set a boundary, you set up a wall, right? It's one thing to need a boundary and have somebody respect that you need a moment to yourself, but you have to really look at what is a boundary and what is a wall. Because sometimes when you think you're placing up a boundary, you're really setting up a wall. And when you're in perfect love, when you come into that wholeness within yourself and you realize that you're perfect, that this creation is perfect, that God did not get any part of this wrong. He didn't get you wrong. He didn't get your life wrong. When you come into that realization and that perfect love, that all I want to do is love you, there's no duality. There's no polarity, because you see everything as love and you ask, what is flowing to me? Because everything wants to flow. Energy moves. Everything wants to flow to you. Everything wants to come to you. Everything wants to make its presence and be acknowledged. And when you start to practice that and you start to do it, then not only does the lens of how you've been seeing your life change, it starts to manifest. So if you're wanting to feel loved and be loved and you become that love, the people that are meant to love you start to jump into your path. Jump into your path. I won't say cross your path. It's like they're jumping onto it. I'm here to love you.
Yeah.
I'm here to forgive you. I'm here to embrace you. And all of that just keeps coming because you are literally sending out that frequency. Everything
That's
is
the key right there.
Yeah.
Is when you turn inward and you actually begin. So here's the dynamics from the beginning of the conversation: the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and the inner child. So here you are. Once you're actually activated in all three and you're living in that, then all of a sudden, all of these components start making sense. Everything starts to flow in. And then all of a sudden, you've now activated your light being. And what's going to happen automatically? Everything's going to flow in. If I turn on the light on the porch at night, how many moths are going to find their way?
Yeah.
How many people are out there hurting? When we activate and get ourselves in alignment and do what we're supposed to be doing, and we're working on ourselves, it automatically allows us that space to be able to help another. And that's the importance of actually activating yourself and your wellness and your well bodies, so that you're completely flowing and functioning the way that you need to be. Did anyone else have anything that they would like to contribute? Go ahead.
Yeah, back on the judgment thing, I actually have a friend of mine. He's a master coach in positive intelligence, and they talk about that judgment and the inner saboteurs of our being and how to play with them, essentially, so that you don't have that judgment anymore, so that you can kind of make it go away quicker, as it were, because we all have that eventually. Like, there's always that little thing in the back of your head you hear, maybe you're not good enough, that's a judgment. That's one of those saboteurs, and that he goes through all of these different things, but it's called Positive Intelligence, and it's a pretty good book. And if you ever want to get in touch with the coach, he's also an NG, so I can
Bizarre.
yeah, it's that guy.
Bizarre.
Yeah, but it's Grover that is a coach for it. So he's one
Okay.
of my people in NG. But yeah, if anyone wants to connect with him, you're welcome to reach out. But yeah, I think that inner judgment's crazy. I think we need the inside world and the outside world, though, because if you don't have the outside world, you have nothing coming to your inner world.
Yes.
Like, so the universe is sending us all messages
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. I feel like this is how I live my life. Like, I feel like every day you see stuff and you're like, oh yeah, that reminds me. That's
I think people need to realize that the contradiction is not outside. The contradiction's inside of you. The resistance is
yeah.
inside of you.
Well, the resistance comes from us. Yeah.
Energy wants to flow to you. So when somebody's trying to love you, you're either not recognizing the love that they're giving you, or it might not be the love that you are wanting or needing, but that doesn't mean love is not flowing to you. And I
Yeah.
think that's the thing when you start to realize, like this, Tesla said, to understand this realm or this universe, that you had to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration.
Right.
If you look at everything that is in operation in our world, it is the law of attraction, energy, frequency, and vibration. No matter, energy's flowing and it's always flowing to you. So whatever you're speaking into existence, whether it's life or death, whether it's upon yourself or on others, that energetic vibration that you sent out into the world is going to come back to you. So
Totally
if you're
agree.
judging yourself and you're hard on yourself and you're judging yourself, if you're doing that to other people, you're judging, you're sending out an energy, a frequency, a vibration, and that same energy keeps returning to us. So if you really break down your life and you look at every struggle and every thing that you've had to overcome, or everything that was called into your experience, and you really acknowledge it, you'll see that you called it forth. If you can break down where your frame of mind was and where you were at that moment in your life, and think, well, what was I going through when this happened? And I'm being triggered by it and I'm holding on to it and it's still bothering me. What was your frame of mind at that time? And to give you an example of that, like when I got out of high school, I was so desperate to find love and to be in a relationship. And all I kept saying was, I want love, I want love, I want love. But I was contradicting myself by saying, I'm so afraid somebody's going to cheat on me. I'm so afraid somebody's going to break my heart. I'm so afraid. And so I was closed and I had a wall, even though I thought I was open, right? I was like, oh, this is me. And I'm, being this person that I think will make other people love me, but I wasn't honoring who I was. And the same experience kept happening. Every time I formed a relationship, I got cheated on, I got left or whatever. I called that into existence. I have to own that and take responsibility for that. That is the hamster wheel. That is the insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. So if you want that to stop in your life, it starts with you. It starts with you saying, I'm going to get off the hamster wheel. I'm going to take my step off of it. And I got to change from what I normally do over and over and over again and flip it. And if you're always outside of yourself looking for validation for who you are and what you are and where you think, you're never going to find it. You're always going to keep looking for it. And it's only going to happen the moment you stop and go, how am I doing this to myself?
We're at the hour. So if anybody needs to jump off, that's fine. I get it. I know we got work to do.
Bye,
So
guys.
thank you.
Love you all.
Thank you for joining.
I love this. I love you guys.
I'm gonna hit the end on the record.